Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Lindsay Pollack. Hopefully, we'll be joined in a little bit by Clint Lausch. But we welcome all of you to the Independent School Leaders Forum. And this is a forum, and I see that Heather has opened up her camera, and we thank you, Heather, because we really encourage you. Open up your mics, open up your camera, join in a conversation. Don't just sit there and listen, although it's okay if that's what you choose to do. We do record these. I will send everyone who is registered a link to the recording, a PDF of the slideshow, and whenever I have written any kind of essay on the topic, I send that along as well. You should receive that either later today or tomorrow. Again, this is a conversation. So, our topic today is a new parent onboarding playbook. So, what is a playbook? A playbook is a plan of what it is you want to do. You can always modify it and add on to it and do more. But the idea is that when we have a playbook, we have a plan of what we want our school, our office, or whatever to do, a plan of what we're going to say, what we're going to do, how we're going to handle the end of year, how we're going to handle the beginning of the year, what are we going to do when new families are admitted in the school. All of that can be organized into a playbook. Just like many of you know, the Montessori school observation playbook that the National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector developed, it's a set of resources. You can modify it to your heart's content, but it's much better than starting from a blank slate. And so the whole idea of the playbook, which by the way, we will also send you after this is over, will actually give you the PDF of the playbook, and I'll send you a Microsoft Word version of the playbook that you can modify to your heart's content. So this is all part of the Montessori Foundation's work to help Montessori schools become better, more sustainable, stronger, recruit more families, keep more families longer, build a happy, wholesome, sustainable school community. So today, again, we're talking about a new family orienting or onboarding playbook because we believe what many schools do is they admit families, whether they're public, whether they're charter, whether they're private, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, whether they're preschools, toddlers, high school, it doesn't matter. But they basically treat their families like chopped liver. What they do is they offer them admission, they send them a contract, they ask for a deposit, assuming there's tuition involved. They welcome them, and then somewheres in the middle of summer, they send home a packet, the parent handbook, whatever. And then maybe the PTA, parent association, starts a little bit of communication, but the average family is basically in limbo. In my opinion, if you want to build a Montessori high school, maybe you don't, but if you want to have a happy, wholesome, healthy school community, you can't take your families for granted. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what the heck you're doing. They don't know what is expected. They don't have any friends there unless they do. If they do, it's great. But the average parent feels like they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to get started. They don't know when school's going to, they don't know anything. And so our goal is to not only give them the information they need, like how are we going to handle sick days? How are we going to handle snow days? How are we going to handle if your kid needs medication at school? Everything about who would you go to? How do you feel like you're at home in this school? It requires aggressive, proactive planning from the moment the family first says, I do, when you offer them admission and they say, I accept admission, from that moment on, you've got all the time between that day and the first day of school, and then you have the entire first year. Play your cards right, and they are with you for the rest of their children's childhood. Play your cards like most of us do, and we keep losing kindergartners to other schools. And so the whole goal is how can you, with limited people in the office, with limited money, limited time, and a summer where probably you're trying to just breathe and come back to earth, how can you do a better job of building a school community? Now, before I do the slideshow, let me just ask if anyone has anything they want to share, any questions, any thoughts, any hopes, any dreams. Open mic. Hi, Amanda. How are you? Nothing? Any of you you're welcome to talk. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, good mo or not good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm glad.
Anyone have anything you want to ask or say first? How about you, Lindsay?
No, I just think, we were talking a little bit before the webinar started today. And, I was sharing that as a school principal, this is something that I so often fell short in my goals because I had ideas of how I wanted to communicate with parents, especially new parents, over the course of the school year. However, my day-to-day operations and activities and, the next fire that I needed to put out, and sometimes literally fire to put out, would take precedence over those long range goals that I had for myself and my operations. So I think, having this playbook is just invaluable, and being able to, chart out the parents experience that journey over the course, especially of their first few months, as they're getting their feet wet, as they're building relationships with their teacher, with parents at the school, and really finding their footing as to where they belong at your school. It's just so important to have this map, really, for your entire school community to be successful.
Yeah, and the playbook, by the way, was developed by Abigail, who's our trained Montessori AI assistant. If you haven't met Abigail, she lives inside of well, she lives inside of my computer, but she's also inside of the Montessori Family Alliance. And literally, we developed the playbook as a document set, a whole plan of what we would do ideally in preparing a school. And that's what I'm going to try to cover with you today from the big broad strokes. But the actual playbook is a usable tool that you can put to work now for your school if you want to, and you'll modify it to meet the reality of your school. If you are part of the Montessori Family Alliance, it is one of many resources that we provide not only to your families, but to you as administrator and as faculty. Um, we have all kinds of tools in there that are helpful in addition to articles you could put on your blog or use in your newsletter and all that. But the bottom line is this is all something we developed for the Montessori Family Alliance. If you are not already familiar with the Montessori Family Alliance, I'll paste in for the first time the link and again, encourage you to check it out. I don't think anyone would regret it. If you like it and fall in love with it, great. If you look at it and say, not for me, I've got something better. I know for years we used to give out the AMS magazine, and it's not written for parents. It's not what they normally want to read. Other people would give out, sort of things David Kahn did at NAMTA, which again, they have their value. Everything has value. But my experience is parents want what they want when they want it, not when you give it to them. So they have a question. They want, if 2 in the morning, they want to know what the heck is the pink tower, they want to know it. Or if they want to know, should I send my kid to Montessori for kindergarten? They're going to ask somebody. They're going to ask their mother, they're going to ask their sister, they're going to ask their coworker, or they're going to ask Abigail. And Abigail at least to give them a humorous, straight answer. So again, you ought to meet Abigail, try her out for yourself and see if you don't like what Abigail does, because you can ask her all kinds of questions. Um, so let me get going and share my screen. Hello, Jim. How are you? Glad to see you today. Again, please jump in at any point, folks. Not a problem. Um, and again, I'll be sending a copy of the playbook to everyone who's registered, whether you attended today or not. And it is a series now. It's not like when we started, you had to register for each individual broadcast. Now it's a series, it's ongoing. And if you're registered for the series, I will send you everything we got, the recording, the articles, the resource, whatever we got, usually within 24 hours. Again, service of the Montessori Foundation. So let me get into sharing. Hello, Diane. How are you?
Hey, just fine, thank you.
Good to see you, my friend. All right, let's see if I can find the correct PowerPoint and we'll get to it. And we'll get from this view to slideshow and play from the start. And here we are. All right. So the goal of today is to give you, says a deep dive. I don't know if I'd say this is a deep dive. I'd say this is a introduction to the idea of how you can thoughtfully onboard new families into a Montessori school, fostering connection and community from day one. By the way, I would argue that onboarding is just as important for new assistants, new after school playground supervisors or aftercare workers, substitutes, obviously new teachers. Onboarding is really, really important. We take for granted that because someone is new, they've joined us, and we've shaken their hands and given them a staff handbook or a parent handbook, that somehow magically we're going to create community. That isn't how it really works in most schools. So we want to prepare the environment. We're very careful about preparing our physical environments. Hopefully your school looks sort of like this. It should communicate timeless beauty, comfort, safety, security, dependability. The whole idea is this is a place where you can just let your hair down and know that you're with friends, you're with family. So we don't do that typically with onboarding, and that's what we should do. And we have families today that are struggling. They don't know what the heck is going on in many cases. You know, one day they are, 30 somethings and they don't have any kids. The next minute they got kids and they're all trying to do the best they can in the way that they know how to do. And they're scrambling between their Instagram account and their TikTok account and their job and their graduate school, whatever they're doing, and they got kids. And they, quite often, at least in the first couple of years, you probably notice that when they're toddler parents or infant parents, they eat out of your hand. They want to know everything. The older they get, the more they think they know it all, and the reality is they don't. But the first year they join you, whether they're a parent of a babe in arm that's joining you in your infant program, or a toddler, or a 3 or 4-year-old, or a high schooler that's joining your school for the first time, never been in Montessori before, they haven't got a clue. Unless they do. I mean, some of them have grown up in Montessori, and that's great. On the other hand, they may become your biggest thorns in the side because they may have a different idea of what Montessori should be. In any way, we want to bring those people into the family. Now, we've got a problem. Families are navigating unfamiliar Montessori environments, and they are often confused, disoriented. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what's going on. They may not feel like they belong. They may not know anyone in the room. They're worried. They're worried about so many things like, will my kid have any friends? Will my kid come home beaten up? Will my kid have bites all over her back or her arms? Will she have poop in her pants? I mean, they worry, and they have reason to worry. The bottom line is parents don't know what they don't know. And our goal is to try to make the unfamiliar feel like it's predictable, understandable, it's safe, that they, as new families, are welcomed into the circle of the community. And the first 90 days are essential. Now, you'll notice the playbook doesn't start on the first day of school. We're simply acknowledging that the first 3 months of school are essential. It really starts the day you admit them into the school, usually the winter or spring in advance. So from the moment they first get admitted, all the way through their first year, that's the playbook. But those first days of actual school where the rubber hits the road, the kid is really leaving their house, getting out of their car, getting off the subway, whatever, entering your school building, coming home hopefully fat and sassy and happy and saying, wow, it was great being at that school. I love it. That's what you want. But the bottom line is we don't just deal with kids, we deal with parents. And our goal is to build trust and to build a sense of engagement. So establishing relationships with families happens during onboarding, not at the new parent reception, not at that first meeting that you have after school begins. And I don't know how you do it in your school, but my experience was we had a group of teachers who would see their parents on the first night, and the family would come into school and sit in little kid chairs under fluorescent lights. They're in your turf, not in their turf. This is not neutral turf. This is your classroom. And they are, one, falling asleep, except the ones that aren't falling asleep. They are feeling very out of place, unless they're not feeling out of place. They are sitting there looking at their texts that are coming in and answering emails. And again, our goal is how, teacher, try to imagine it. You're a young parent. You're 40 years old. You're working in an office. You're looking at a 20-something teacher, maybe a 50-something teacher. And you're sitting there having all sorts of considerations about the life choices this person made versus the life choices you made, and saying something like, well, there for the grace of God goes I. Thank God I didn't choose that. Or I wish I could have grown up in a Montessori school, or I wish I could have been a Montessori teacher. Whatever they're thinking, they're thinking. But the teacher has typically got a clipboard and they are sitting there lecturing these parents. And the parents are, I don't know what they're doing, but they're basically feeling awkward. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and invite us to get back into conversation, because I just described that first night where parents come to your school and they're in a classroom and they're sitting in those little chairs, and the teacher has a laundry list of topics she wants to go over. How does that work out for you? Do you do it differently, and what do you do? Yeah, Jim. You're still muted, friend. Usually it's in the lower left of your screen. Hi, Jim.
Now, here we go. Generational shift. What you're describing accurately is an experience I had, well, I guess 50 years ago. So 1973, 74, 75, we were starting our school. And I had a bunch of very awkward young parents in our audience. Today, I find with YouTube and other online orientations, this phenomenal change where I have a bunch of faux experts receiving any information I'm attempting to present because they've already watched all of these What is Montessori informational videos, YouTube explanations of materials, and I find that I'm pushing against their I would say what would be a kind word? Inaccurate impressions, jumping to conclusions about they completely understand what Montessori is. So it's a phenomenally different experience than I had as a young man. Now sitting there as this old guy, what in the hell could I possibly know? Oh, well, all of my children went through a Montessori program. Mario Montessori was one of my trainers in Bergamo, Italy in 1971. I have all of these high performing colleagues that came out of that training. We were presumptuous enough to think that we understood what a Montessori experience was. And so my battle challenge now is to be relevant to these, I guess you could call, I mean, what you're characterizing are modern day rookies or parenting rookies. And it takes time. 90 days is an interesting uh, measure of that time where parents are, for whatever reasons, right? Whether it's advertising, marketing, social media, a conversation with a fellow parent in the parking lot at Whole Foods, whatever it is that has brought them to be part of that audience. And those 90 days, I agree with you, are crucial because if if you're not complete in giving them an experience that they can adhere to, then they'll be gone.
Well, that first meeting is probably not where you start explaining Montessori. I'm thinking that the first time you explain Montessori is probably during the tour or during some kind of class, which we recommend, is Montessori right for you? And there's no question. Today's parents think they know it all. And they can talk about Waldorf versus Montessori versus Reggio Emilio versus whatever. The bottom line is it is what it is, and they have a very short attention span. But that first night, either before school starts or in the week that school starts, do your schools online not, excuse me, please either use the chat or unmute. Do you not have some kind of a back to school event where the parents go into the classroom and meet with the teachers? And at that meeting, isn't the teacher typically talking about an extra change of clothes and label everything and how to drop them off and why it's important to be on time and a whole laundry list of really housekeeping kinds of things, as opposed to why we teach the way we teach, which is another conversation we typically want them to have. But by that meeting, there's usually only two parents there because everyone else is scattered after the first meeting. And by the way, I'm going somewheres with this because I have watched now for 50 years Montessori teachers, whether Harvey Hallenberg or you name it, John McDermott. I've watched lots of people do lots of things. And other than Barbara Gordon with her, the Montessori journey, most of us tend to do it the same because we ask our teachers to basically meet with their parents. And the way they do it is they and their assistant or the co-teachers have a clipboard or two clipboards, and they got a list of things they're going to go through, and they go through it one thing after the other in a monotone. And the fathers, forgive me for being sexist, the fathers are usually going, oh my God, can I get out of here? Can I get up and leave? I need to go to the bathroom. I'm falling asleep. Oh my God. And the mothers are typically, they got a clipboard of their own. They're taking frantic notes because they want to know it all. And then you also have the parents who are the groupies who have been there before and they know the answers. They want to answer, but they're usually not allowed to answer because the teacher's doing the talking. So one of the things I recommend is one, think about what happens when parents come to a meeting at your school. It's not only obvious that it's hard to get people to come out at night because they've got better things to do, like watch paint dry or watch the 20th anniversary of Cheers, anything other than coming to your school. Coming to your school is coming to your turf, sitting on your little kid chairs with their adult butts, and they are not having a good time. And hopefully you provided free childcare. If you didn't, they definitely aren't likely to show up. But that first meeting of the year, for most of us, is one of the nights of the year where most parents will come. Not everyone, but a lot of parents will come because they feel like God knows what they might miss. And so they show up, and that's your first opportunity to really do the job right. And most of us don't do a great job. So here's my advice to your teachers: screw the clipboard. Up in the front of the wall, put a big piece of paper, or give everyone a sheet of paper, or do a digital dump to them, however they receive data. Say, here's a list of the things that normally our school likes families to remember, whether you've been here for 20 years or whether it's your first year. These are things we tend to forget over the summer. These are things that really tend to be important for you as a parent to remember. Where do you want to start? You all may know the answers to these things, which is great because there will be a quiz after. But where do you want to start? Heather, where would you like to start? And you literally throw it out to them, or you say, look at this list. What seems most important to you? And Diane says, I think I'm worried about my drop off. How does that work in the morning? Great. Heather, you've been here for a couple of years. Can you tell Diane how that works? And by just doing that, by not being the one doing most of the talking, you'll tend to get a greater buy-in from the parents because they never know when they're going to be called on. So little kid chairs suck. Fluorescent lights suck. No childcare is terrible. Being able to provide food really helps. Reminders helps. And so the whole idea of the playbook obviously includes that first night because your school's going to do it too. We all have to do that first night of school, right? Lindsay, you've run private schools, public schools. Didn't you have to do this?
Absolutely. Yes, Tim. And, your point of providing childcare is such an important point because we really can't have these conversations with our little people in the room. We really need the parents to be able to focus on our conversations. And so we normally had different gatherings on different evenings for different communities, our learning communities, where we could have the children together in the gymnasium or in the cafeteria. And we staffed that at no charge to our parents for the evening. And I know one school that I recently visited even had an option for parents to drop off their children. They could stay for the orientation. And I thought this was a really clever idea. They had a little gathering, a watering hole nearby. So at the end of the open house or the orientation, they got a drink ticket and they could carry that over to the ice house. And then the PTO paid for the first adult beverage for the family. Now they had to take the kids with them. So it was the kind of place where you could go with the whole family. But it also served to keep those conversations going and for families to get to know one another in a less formal environment outside of the school. And I really thought it was brilliant because, parents oftentimes you'll see the meeting after the meeting out in the parking lot, right? But this it gave the school an opportunity to continue that narrative, to continue the dialogue with folks afterward. And so everyone, after the school staff closed up, they walked over then and joined the conversations that were still ongoing. So they were playing cornhole and the kids were running around and making new friends. And I just thought, what a great opportunity for everyone to just kind of take the orientation was so formal and you've got new folks who are feeling nervous about this new school environment. And I thought, you could you could do this in a lot of different ways. You could also, if you had a park next door, release people and have ice cream treats for everyone, or a cool, lemonade and cookies. However, but to have that unstructured extension of the conversation, I really thought was brilliant.
There are so many traditions, and I'm sure if we all start to tell our stories, we'll come up with multiple. Many people have maybe the week before a picnic where, the families are all invited to come together. And again, in some schools like Sarasota, families stay away from Sarasota until the very last minute because of the heat. So they're up north in North Carolina or Canada, wherever. They just show up the night before and then come to school. But however you do it, whether you do it on the first week of school, whether you do it the week before, whether you do it 2 weeks before, there's no wrong answer. Quite often, we do some kind of family friendly event where the kids are there, parents are there. Quite often, everyone is there. But you can do more. You can do more. You can have individual classroom events. You can have line dancing. You can do the watering hole like you discussed. It's a great plan. There is no wrong answer, which goes back to another thing. I think last week we talked about parent ambassador programs. I want you to imagine, if your school doesn't already have this in place, that you've got a group of volunteers. It could be your PTO, but parent ambassadors are not the same as a group that organizes fundraisers and special events. These are like the college big brothers and sisters. So let's imagine that in your school, a new family comes into the school. Dr. Pollock has just been admitted. She's got a 3-year-old. And Amanda, you're a parent ambassador from your school, and you contact Dr. Pollock, let's say in March, and say, "Hi, my name's Amanda. I'm going to be parent ambassador for your child's class, and I understand that you are going to be with us in the fall. I want to welcome you." And so that you begin the whole dance. It could be by text. Often what I do, instead of calling people up, because I don't know who the heck is calling me, I'll send people a text and say, "Heather, it's Tim Selden from the Montessori Foundation. I'm just reaching out to see if you've got a moment to talk. I'm going to be parent ambassador for your child's class, and I'd love to meet you. If this is not a good time, let me know what would be." So reaching out to people, whether by email, which most people ignore, or by phone or by text, or by, some people literally drop by their house like a neighbor in some schools. But my best guess is ideally the spring before the ambassadors begin to introduce themselves to the new families that are in their class. Now, they're also divvying up the class. So if you've got a class of 25 kids or 30 kids or 20 kids, you probably have multiple parent ambassadors. Usually two will do it. You can call them whatever you want. Room parents is not an uncommon term. But the idea is you divvy them up, but the first focus is on the families that are coming into the school. And you're reaching out to them as fast as you can, as early as you can, from the moment they were offered admission and accepted it. They are welcomed into the school. The first welcome is, "I just want to introduce myself. This is how you can reach me. This is what my role will be with you for the next year." That next year is really important. So the idea that you're being welcomed into the school, this is someone who you will be in communication with periodically, and you can call me or I'll call you. For example, I will call you to remind you of that back to school picnic. Or I'll send you an email or a text. I want to make sure, can I drive you there? Would you like to go together? Want to carpool? I live near you. Can we get our kids together for a play date? These are all typical things. And this works just as well in a high school or a middle school or an elementary school. There's no wrong answer here. It works with infants, toddlers, early childhood, you name it. So the family is reaching out, and you have to train your ambassadors to know that not every family has any time. Not every family wants to be your best buddy. not every family wants to be a groupie in the school. They just want to, they're just looking for childcare. Ideally, that's not what they want, but some people do. So we have to love people where they're at and try to lead them into the congregation, knowing that some people will embrace it wildly and welcome it, and other people are going to be standoffish. So you got to make sure your parent ambassadors know what they might get. Secondly, you got to teach your parent ambassadors what to do when the parent that they're dealing with is upset, because they may not know what to say. They don't know what's going on. They're listening, this family is in tears, they're angry, they're talking about pulling out. And so you've got to teach them how do you say to the parent, I hear you, tell me more. This is really important. I want to take notes. I'm not the person that can solve this, but I am the person that can help you. I'm here to help you. One, organize your thoughts, think about what you want to have happen here. And at the very least, I can communicate to the school that you've got this concern and ask them to contact you right away. Or have you tried talking to your child's teacher? Have you tried calling the office to speak to them? Because they're going to be very sympathetic. They're going to want to hear you. They may or may not agree with your understanding, but they are there to help you feel safe, to feel heard, to feel seen. So the parent ambassadors are really crucial to the idea of onboarding. And then onboarding includes these events that we talked about, such as the tradition of the picnic before school or in the week after school. Another thing that typically happens is stuff like home visits. A lot of schools do home visits. If your teachers don't do home visits, I really, really recommend that you sit down. Maybe we ought to have a special session on home visits and how that's done. Maybe we get the people from Lumen and some of the other groups to talk to us, Lindsay. The bottom line is whether your tradition is your teachers go to visit the family in the home, obviously it's all arranged in advance. It's not a problem. They're not going to show up like Jehovah's Witnesses and try to convince them that they should be Montessori groupies. The goal is to make parents feel comfortable, to know you're not there to judge them, to know you're there so that their child knows who their teachers are going to be, that their child can show the teachers their room, introduce them to the family cat, whatever is the deal that's going on. So the kid feels more at home with the teachers. The other thing that we typically do is we invite the children and parents to come to the classroom before school begins. So if your teachers are like the teachers I've worked with for 50 years, whether you bring them back a week before school starts or 2 weeks before school starts, like I did, it's never enough time. They're desperate to make their rooms right. And here's my advice. Whose classroom is it anyway? Is it a children's house or is it Jim's classroom? If we were in Japan, the children would come to school 2 weeks before classes begin and work with the faculty to set the school back up. I believe that's best practice in Montessori. It's a children's house. Now, some kids are useless. Don't get me wrong. You get 3-year-olds running around. You got a kid who's never been in an environment before. What does he know? So the idea, if you're running a children's house or a toddler's class or Nido, they're all going to be different. But, the idea of inviting families to come and literally hand clean every single piece of material with the Murphy's oil soap or the warm water with lemon juice squeezed into it. Whatever you do to make sure every single thing is correct and perfect and ready for the children. Ideally, in my mind, that's a mom, a dad, 2 moms, 2 dads, the family, grandma, who knows, and the kid working there with you to prepare the environment. And if I've got new kids coming in and I want to treat them separately, we set the classroom up in advance together over the course of 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it takes. And then we invite the incoming children to join us to have a visit to the classroom, to see it for the first time for this year. They've already been there in the spring. They may or may not remember it. They may or not have come to our summer program or camp or whatever we did. But usually setting it up again in the fall or for the fall is part of onboarding. In the same way, there's no wrong answer what you do with parents. For example, at Barry and Newgate, we always had a new parent reception, which is different from that night where the parents come in and they sit there and get lectured on housekeeping. It's a reception. It's, typically there's food, there's drink. It's a celebration. It's honoring. You're telling the story of the school. You're celebrating Maria Montessori. You're celebrating our community. The idea is this is the beginning of well, for example, Barry was founded in 1932. So this fall will be close to their centennial year. So the idea of every year at Barry, we would tell the story of the founding of the school. We would tell the story of how it evolved from progressive to Montessori. We would, literally show movies of the past and just say, we are part of a tradition. The families that have been part of this school, the children that have grown up in this school, we are all a continuous tapestry. And it's a tradition, and we welcome you into this tradition. So again, every school has its traditions, and they're all good. But the idea of the playbook is every single thing is planned in advance, because some years you are just filled with energy and good ideas. In other years, you just say, oh my God, it's another year starting. I can't believe I got to do this. And so the idea is you can't be the one who is the only one responsible for making this happen. It is too important. It needs to be part of the school tradition, plan, policy, which is the idea of the playbook. Now, before I go on to other parts of what the playbook includes, let me stop and invite you guys to ask and share and whatever. I hope you're enjoying this. Jim, when I think you and I first met each other years ago, many years ago, the tradition was, you were going to bleed off kindergartners. It was going to take 3 to 5 early childhood classes to get 1 lower elementary. And I always argued no pyramids, cylinders. I want the same kids 15, 18 years later when these kids are graduating. And we got it. I mean, Washington is a town of I've been moved, right? Washington, D.C. Tough place to operate. We were able to get attrition down under 5% for most years.
Wow.
And so the goal is it's never going to be perfect. Families will leave, but I want them leaving with tears in their eyes. I don't want money ever to be the reason why they had to leave. I want people saying, what can I do for you? Not what have you and your school done for me lately? Or does Montessori really prepare kids for life? Stupid question.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because when you start talking about building trust, I feel is established through story and tradition. And it's not necessarily, as you're suggesting, the reception is distinct from a lecture or the nuts and bolts of what pick up and drop off is like and what time lunch is. The reception is that opportunity for story, for sharing emotions and experiences that adhere to what the families might have questions about. But I was reminded that when we started our adolescent program, it was one of the parents spoke up and said, I don't want my daughter to hide in this program. And I said, Scott, I don't understand. What are you? And this was in one of these reception-like meetings. And he said, I don't want my daughter to be in a program where we're hiding from what the big bad world out there and the consequences of being in a public school, junior high or middle school. And I said, no, that's not our goal. Our goal is to establish an adolescent program that is not necessarily unique, but it's engaged with what the parents and the children can experience. And what ended up happening out of that particular conversation is 2 weeks before school started, we built the tables and shelves that would hold the materials and the tables that the students would work at rather than quote unquote desks. And the result was phenomenal because all of a sudden I think we had 11 children, 11 adolescents in that work experience. And they were using circular saws, power sanders. I mean, I did not consult the school's um, insurance liability concerns, perhaps. Nobody was injured in the making of all of this furniture. It just established a base environment that when the first day of school, when the students sat down at these tables that were now, properly varnished and they were a piece of furniture that they were working at, had a completely kind of profound effect upon their approach to lessons, etc. They would go to shelves and take books or different things back to these tables. The end result was that throughout the school year, these same students then ended up refinishing all of the tables in the entire school. So the toddler classrooms had freshly sanded and varnished tables, etc. And then weirdly enough, one of the graduates of that adolescent program went into furniture repair and restoration of antiques and different things. So it
Wow.
became a career opportunity of great success, and he now has an independent business. So I guess it goes back to a conversation I had with Chris Rock. You just don't know. You treat people a certain way, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any thoughts or stories you want to share? Again, one of the things I think we talked about last week, if I remember correctly, is we talked about the idea of how we could use this time at the end of the year to have a retreat with our faculty, whether it's a half-day retreat, full-day retreat, multi-day retreat, to sit down and ask the questions of, what worked really well this year, and what could we do better? What do we want to plan to do better? And so the whole idea is to work smart. Montessori is a system of systems. And whether you're a Montessori school or a traditional school, parochial school, whatever you are, traditions matter. The military academy has great traditions. There is a clear culture, how West Point, how Annapolis, how the Air Force Academy works. There are traditions. The same thing was true at Georgetown University, which I assure you was not Montessori, but the Jesuits had their own great traditions. Jewish day schools, every school that's great has a clear culture. And that culture has to be reinvented, rediscovered, recommitted to, just like a marriage. It takes an investment of time, love, energy. First off, to not hold it as a burden, because you do this year after year, you can become weary. But part of it is to enjoy ourselves, to have fun. One of my books is called Celebrations of Life. And the whole idea is that we ought to really get a kick out of this just as our kids do. And ideally, what we want to do is work smart. But the idea of systems is that when you went to Bergamo, Jim, what you were taught is how over the years, not only Maria Montessori, but Mario and Grazzini and Heidegger, you came up with a set of a theoretical framework, a set of traditions, a culture that worked. And it's not that it's frozen in time, but you're not building it from scratch. You're carrying on a plan. And I think that's the brilliance of Maria Montessori's work. Other people have been brilliant school designers and educational philosophers and teachers, but they burn out. And as they burn out, the thing falls apart. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to work smart. And that's what the idea of the playbook is all about, is the idea that we can do this by methodical plan with as much done in advance as possible. Let me use one more example. Some of you have seen my book, Celebrations of Life. You may have used it in the past. It's the book in which I talk about how do you make history and geography and international studies come alive for very young children using experiential celebration, as well as weaving it into practical life and sensorial music, art, and all the different other things you can do. The secret of doing this and not burning out is you have to have a box for India. You have to have a box for Hanukkah. You have to have a box for every single thing, Christmas in Williamsburg. And you have to collect the artifacts. You have to collect all the resources. And maybe have a box for every classroom. Maybe have a central box that's passed from class to class. There's no wrong answer. But the idea is that we're not making this stuff up. We've got it pre-planned, pre-organized. When we start a new Montessori school, we're not making it up. I do a lot of work these days with early childhood centers that are not Montessori. I am shocked that they are literally grab bagging stuff from all over, teachers, paid teachers, all kinds of crazy resources, and they're hodgepodging stuff and thinking this is a good idea. To me, this is crazy making. What we're trying to do as leaders of schools is to make it easy for our staff. We're trying to make it easy for our office team. And we're trying to make it really easy for ourselves so that we can enjoy ourselves and go out and enjoy, summer where, even if we're running a big summer camp, like Barry had 800 kids, I had a camp director, but I wanted to be able to go sail my boat. I wanted to be able to go out and do some stuff. So even though I worked hard, I wanted to know that when I walked away, it was in good hands. Now, I don't know that any of us ever really don't worry about our school. It's like not worrying about our children. But the bottom line is the easier we make it on ourselves, the easier we make it on ourselves. And that's what today's all about. So the other thing you're going to find in the playbook is a set of emails, communications. I don't care if you send them out by email, by text, by physical letter. It doesn't matter, whatever works for you. But they're templates. And we suggest that you take the playbook, which is a PDF, and then you take the Microsoft Word version and make the Microsoft Word version yours. Modify it to your heart's content, and then make sure it's in the hands of all the people in your school who will come after you, so that they know that even though they may change it from year to year, there's a logic to what we do here. Now, I think I've got 13 different emails in there that start before school starts, again, back in the spring, all the way out. And I don't talk about the parent ambassador in there because, again, we're not trying to overwhelm people with one thing, one master book. But the long and short of it is develop your plan of what you think will work, including how do we do that first bricks and mortar, the orientation, event. How do we do the celebration event, the before the school event that includes the kids? If there's one that doesn't include the kids, for example, if you had come to Barry in those days, at the beginning of the year, the kids would be assembled. Think Hogwarts, okay? You got the big hall. Try to imagine a darkened gymnasium with, several hundred people, children and parents, and everyone has a candle. This is the days when we could do this. They all have candles. There's a heart lamp that I still have on the front, which is the heart of the school. And from that one light, the children were asked, all the seniors were asked to come up on stage. We lit their candles. They in turn lit the faculty's candles. They in turn went out and lit the candles of every single person in the hall. And the school music, which was Pachelbel, by the way, Pachelbel would play, and the hall, which was pitch black, would gradually fill up with light. Well, obviously, you may have seen this in a church or other faith organization, but it's the kind of thing that builds that sense of drama, celebration, tradition, as Jim was talking about. So whatever your traditions are, they're all good, come up with works for you in your school. And the more you can do this, I think the more you're going to be happy. And that is the real message of today. There's more, there's always more. Um, and I can only say that I've had a good time, and I hope that you did too. And by the way, next week, the head of the Barry School is going to be here, and he's been talking about a new alternative to the International Baccalaureate diploma. And I really encourage you, if you've got any interest in Montessori secondary, come and listen to him. Ben is going to be here. He's going to be talking about the new, he calls it the Global Impact Diploma. And I think you'll find it interesting. And if you can't be here, we will record it. You will receive the recording. You will receive anything we have in writing about it. So, on that note, any last words from any of you? Then I'm going to put in the chat one more time in case you're bored. Please join me in a few minutes or on any Tuesday or Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time and learn about the Montessori Family Alliance. I don't think you will regret it. It may or may not be something in your budget. We've even got a plan that if you don't feel you can pay for your families, you can offer it to them and you'll make, frankly, some money off of them. Bottom line is, the more people that are looking at it, the more people are saying, oh my goodness, this is not going to replace my teachers, not going to replace the Montessori journey or all the movie nights or other things we do. But this is a really affordable, great solution that I think is really neat. So hopefully we'll see some of you in a few minutes, some of you next week. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. See you next week. Thanks for being here.
Bye,
Thank you,
Lindsay.
Tim.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Diane.